I call to order the committee of the whole board meeting at 6:32 p.m. on Thursday, May 11th, 2023, and ask for a roll call, please.
Ms. Spivey?
Here.
Dr. Maharaj? Here. Mr. Arkin?
Here.
Mr. Henry?
Here.
Mr. Rottieri?
Here.
Ms. Harris? Here. Ms. Harris? Here. And Mr. Costi?
Here. I move to approve the April 13, 2023 committee of the whole minutes as presented. Are there any corrections or adjustments needing to be made? Okay.
Second.
Oh, on second.
On second, but I didn't find it. So there.
I'm not up to going
Second.
stuff.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? No. Okay. Our next order of business is recognition of retiring and newly elected board members. So our first segment is to recognize our retiring board members. We can go the other way, but so would anyone like to start the recognition of the incumbent? Brad?
I recognize all three of them. That's Ralph. No, I just briefly, I wanted to thank each of you from the bottom of my heart for your contributions. You couldn't have come in at a worse time. You didn't know that within a year what was going to hit, and I think that you know, I guess sometimes I think there for the grace, but for the grace of God, but I really want to commend you for the job done, especially bringing us through COVID. I think it was very, very difficult, and I can't imagine the stress that you guys had, and especially my sometimes partner in crime over there, Sarah. You know, you led through a good part of that, and I wanted to definitely say thank you and thank you for your leadership. I like that. And to Ralph, I know we've sparred a little bit, but I certainly respect everything that you've done, and your expertise in a lot of different areas. And thank you for lending that to our community. We're better for that. And Gina, of course, all of your what's the word? Your holistic outlook on life and on organizations. That's been very helpful for us in this great transition that you were all part of. That from the day Sarah walked in here, there's so much change in this institution. Entirely new administration, entirely
Entirely two new administrations. Yeah.
right, and certainly an upgrade to our policies and to our adding the gender equity policy, the racial equity policy, the implementation of those, and of course the work of CCD that Gina's led for the last couple of years that I've been on the board. And before that, I think all I can say is thank you, and I think our community owed you a great debt of gratitude.
We didn't do this at the library, so I didn't prepare any remarks, but I can speak off the cuff. And I'll just briefly say, we've been on this board for 2 years. And a couple things I really appreciated about all three of you, and really about the board as a whole, that has been the ways in which, even when we disagree, it's been respectful. People have really listened to each other and thought carefully about the points that people raised. You've all held space open for difficult conversations. I don't know, it's just, we've all served with such integrity. Even when the meetings were going really long and we're all very tired. We might joke about being tired, but I've never seen any of you cut a conversation short when there were still things to be discussed. So, yeah, thank you. Great models for me.
Thank you.
We'll save time for this. Yes. I'm just proud of what we've done on this board. I really think of better looking at the board as different facets, different opinions, but we work so well together, and the work we've done has been impressive. I'm go one by one. So like Ralph has been, as an attorney, I love your mind for critical thinking, analysis, and keeping everybody honest in the community. And behind the scenes, Ralph has been a great help to me, just kind of helped me get things in perspective, and your data, love data. And I'm kind of sad to see you, this is ending, but it's the work continues, and I know you can be proud that we do good things here. And Sarah, like your leadership through the whole pandemic, I voted for you. You know, but your leadership there was just outside of took on you, and you did it with grace, and you did it with such integrity. I'm just proud of the work everyone did here, and yeah, you did so well. But I love to see you smile more once you were no longer president, which is terrific. And all with Tom, and Tom just hit up, which was great. Gina, I met Gina at American TV discussions. I called her dear friend, and she withdrew to me, and I told her no. I said no, I'm good on politics, Gina, and came with slow yes, and I'm just proud of just keeping her honest, the community, us, and never let's lose sight of the bigger picture, which is equity for all of us students, particularly Black students, and not letting anyone get an inch of, you know, without acknowledging it. And it's been great work. So I'm just, it's bittersweet, but then I'm looking forward to the new board coming on. And I think you guys are left in great hands. And I just look forward to what continues for Oak Park, Oak Forest High School, and yeah, it's just thank you, because you didn't have to do this. None of us did, but we volunteer our time every 2 weeks, and we do good things. We can take a bow.
Thank you. So I think that, you know, the strength of a board is in the diversity of the expertise and the background, etc., of its members. Each person bringing something different to the table, and you three embody that and make the whole that much better. And because of that, I think, and thank you for making me a better board member because of you. So individually, Ralph, your policy knowledge and discipline has been a tremendous asset. And we have policies in place that didn't exist 4 years ago because of you that will live on and make the district stronger. Your knowledge of evidence-based funding and contribution there are things 10 years from now when you look back at this district, you can say, I played a role in that because of what I brought. So I thank you for that. Gina, your passion as an educator and educator's perspective, as well as student-centric thinking, it, just was part of your everyday discussion, making me think more that way. And so for that, I thank you. And I know you've got bigger and better opportunities to have influence. So I wish you well in that. Sarah, I remember the first day I met you. Do you?
I'm sure I'd like to.
I met you in the library when you were a candidate, which I should have thought, you wanted to understand the job. And that should have been a signal of how much dedication you would have to the role, because you really wanted to learn about it and get a perspective before you even got into it, more so than any others that I've experienced. So that was a sign really of the unwavering commitment you've had over 8 years, which is a long time. And you've led certainly during challenging times as a district, and having succeeded you, I feel you paved a path that was just easy to step into. And you've been an ear, a voice, for me personally, which I greatly appreciate and respect. And I hope that these relationships for all of us can go on, while those who stay continue to carry out the work that you've done, and you continue to. I know all of you have things on your horizon that you're going to do in the continued interest of our kids in various ways. So it's our loss. But it's typically lost for our kids. So for all three of you, thank you so much for your service. We are fortunate as a community to have people of your integrity, of your passion, willing to come in and do this work. And so for that, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. So do you want to allow them to say your parting comments?
I think Ralph should go first.
12 years. I served on the school board for 12 years, this one for 4, and the D91 for 8. And you can't do something like that unless you're supported at home. So the first thing I'm going to do is acknowledge my wife, who's all of nights I'm not home. She's making sure the wheels don't come off. And if you've met the archery case, chances of the wheeling coming off high. So really, MK, for you allowing me to do these things, which are my passion, I care so much about education, and allowing me to be away from the home and putting all that on you, I just can't tell you how much I appreciate your support and how much I love you. So thank you for that. As for board members, it's really been an honor to be on this board serving with you. Gina, when we first joined this board, the board was somewhat dysfunctional. Would you agree with that? Yeah. and that has not carried through. We have found a way to work together despite having differences of opinions. And what I'm most thrilled about and most respectful of all you for is your strategic vision. I'm thinking about the long game. So easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and the millions of emails and you go to the grocery store and you hide under a package, and none of that stuff has dissuaded anyone on this board from evaluating all the different options that have been put on the table in a long-term strategic fashion and what is best for this district, the students we serve, their families, our faculty, and that's what it's about. It's not easy. And Fred, worst of times, but best of times. I mean, you find, right? You make iron with fire. I mean, we went through a pandemic together, and I think we came out stronger. We're as a board, as an administration, I think as a district, we are now really defined in our goals towards equity. And we understand building an equitable institution means every student that walks through the store will receive the kind of education that student needs. students to be successful. Period. That's a commitment that's hard to make. Because you have to readjust and reallocate resources. You have to evaluate all your programming. Is it working? You know, what are the metrics we have in place? We've done all that. We've done it together. We've done it as a board. We've disagreed, but we've come to consensus because our commitment was all to the district. And that's what I really admire about all of you. Mary Ann, only 2 years together with you. But I really appreciate your passion and concern for the people who don't have a voice. Every discussion we've ever had, whether it was about a contract, whatever, is how does this impact the folks that are most disadvantaged? And are we doing the right thing? That's something that always has to be forefront of every discussion. Fred, I don't think you've missed a detail on anything in construction, insurance, you name it. You not only read the materials, you had a list of questions almost as exhaustive as coffee. Almost. Almost that way there. You know, Gina, you know, we've known each other in other fields. And so, you know, I always respect and love you and feel that your passion for equity in its true sense has been something that's helped motivate me and keep me coming to this. And I think your vision for that is embodied in a lot of what we do. Your leadership seems wonderful. To breathe, you're like one of my favorite people in the Western Hemisphere. And I think that you're not a lawyer, but you could.
Why says that?
I mean, you're very analytical and you really want to know all the ins and outs and all the data, and working with you has been an honor and a pleasure. I think your contributions to the board in a very short time have been phenomenal and almost irreplaceable. Speaking of irreplaceable, Sarah, thank you so much for asking me to run for this board. But I have to say, you did lead through the pandemic, and I know that during that time, it wasn't just the pressure of the pandemic that was coming to your door. And I know that there was a lot of other pressure coming to your door from a lot of different people that we consider as friends and neighbors, and maybe not always the most appropriate way. And I thought you handled it with aplomb. I thought that you never, ever personalized things in a way that got between you and your responsibility. And you always put your responsibilities first. And that's hard to do. Very easy to personalize the kind of communications that we get periodically. But so I think your leadership was great. And you were one heck of an intern at the law firm. I gotta tell you.
You've like romanticized it over the years. But good.
And that leaves Mr. Kofsky. You know, I'm smiling because, you know, it is my time to step up. And so I've served and I need to move on, new voices need to come on. But I'm really confident that the ship won't lose its way with Mr. Kofsky continuing on the board. You need that institutional knowledge. And Tom, I think you've taken your responsibilities as president beyond what a normal person would do. And I think for all the right reasons. Never once has it been about his ego, and that's really important to understand. It's always been about what's best for this school district, children will serve our families, and I appreciate that. And you're strategic, and you know, you and I do agree from a policy standpoint about how to do things, having metrics in place, all that other stuff. I think that disciplined focus on approach to resolving issues and implementing our responsibilities is irreplaceable. And I think your leadership has been phenomenal. As has yours, Greg. Thanks for joining on and taking the offer. I really think you've grown into this position. So I am leaving and I'm going to say I ran for this board because Sarah asked me, but also because I think if you look at all the different school districts in our state, we're unique because we have the resources. We have the resources to eliminate any kind of discrepancy in outcome by race, gender, ethnicity, or income. And this administration, this board has demonstrated a commitment to make that a reality. And I don't think you're just going to be successful as we move down this path. I ran because I believe Oak Park could be the example for the state and the nation and how you create a well-functioning, equitable school district that takes its resources and invests them wisely in creating an educational and academic atmosphere where all children can reach their potential. So thank you so much for having that vision. I am beyond honored to have served with all of you, and I am not going to stop smiling today. Thank you. Ralph goes first.
It's. No, I think I'm gonna get us. Like, it's been such an honor just to be here. Doing this with people who are so good and so smart and so dedicated. And it's such an honor to have the trust of the community to do the work, because it is extraordinary what gets done here. Not by the board. But please don't videotape me, I'd appreciate it. Not by the board, but by the people doing the work. And we just get to sit here and pretend like we've done something, but really it's not about us. It's about the faculty and staff, and mostly about our kids. I think my watch is thinking I'm having a heart attack, so if I am, please. You know. Yeah, I mean, this is an extraordinary place. I'm just so grateful to have been a part of it. So I'm not going to do the around the room things. I can't do any of you justice with a handful of words, but it was such an honor to be here. I just really want to thank you for allowing me to participate in this with you. I really think we're leaving the district better than we found it. Going through the hard work of our staff and our administration and our kids. But to have had just a small piece of that is the honor of a lifetime and completely rewarded. So, thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm gonna turn my mic. I could go around too. Like, it's really been quite something to serve with each and every one of you. And the amount of information and the depth of understanding that I've gotten from being able to be on the board with each of you has been really amazing. The perspectives that everyone brings, Ralph said it, everyone brings something that made this a really strong whole. And when I did come on the board, I just got to recognize a couple people from that time. I made some notes because I didn't want to forget what it was like when I got here. And I couldn't, because Dr. Pruitt Adams was here when I got here, and so was Dr. Jackie Moore. And their example and leadership as we started to navigate what became the pandemic. And then Sarah's leadership. And so I just want to acknowledge some really amazing first Black women, and then women who really did the yeoman's work to carry us in a really challenging time. So I'd be remiss if I didn't say that. There's two other women too that I want to recognize. And one of them is right next to me, Lisa. Because a lot of what happens, people don't understand how much the clerk of the board does. And how much you keep us together and make sure we have what we need and all of the things. Lisa, really above and beyond. It's been so wonderful to get to work with you. So wonderful. And then I gotta mention Gail Pelton. Because when I came on board, Gail was here, and man, talk about someone who knew nothing about, like, right, I'm in education, but I didn't know all the ins and outs. And when I got here, Gail made it possible for me to keep going. So I was like, okay, we can do this. So I wanted to say, Fred, I mean, you just predate me with the graduation date, but it has been amazing to work with another fellow from this place. Because the school is amazing, does outstanding work and produces really great humans. And into our society. And I think for me, that's been the most important part of our work. Has been what are we doing so that the students have what they need? And what are we doing to make sure the teachers have what they need? And so Ralph, your knowledge, I mean, really, I could go on. But everyone does, and that's why I let you go first too, because you do. But you know, I love you, and you know, when you finally said yes to being on board to running, I was like, yes, there was a collective yes. There were a number of people who were like, yes, we will be outstanding. And you have been, you've exceeded, I mean, like, it's been amazing to get to serve with you. And Sarah, like I said, it takes a strong, amazing person to navigate what you navigated while we were, there were so many different transitions with not only the pandemic, but with the administration and the board. And, you know, you did. So thank you. Okay, the last part. This has sat with me because I'm here, right? And you all know that wouldn't be Gina is in the place tonight if I didn't say something about equity, inclusion, and white supremacy culture. And the importance of us making sure that systemically and institutionally, we are continuing the work of knocking down every single one of those barriers. And I see that happening. And so great, thank you for coming into the role. And, you know, I met you, remember that we met? It was on CCD. And Greg was maybe a different at the time, and we were in the same small group, and I just was voicing all my concerns. And ideas and thoughts. And Greg received every single one, and the discussions that we have had ever since then have been amazing. So Sarah, thank you for starting CTV. Right, and I'm grateful that I got to participate in it in the ways that I did. Our LGBTQ plus students, there's a lot of support required. The things that they're facing, the systemic, and you know, there's just so much going on, and not just in the community, but in spaces so that they can be safe. And I just want to remember to keep that at the forefront. And definitely, without doubt, our Black students and our students of color, because what we've seen and what we continue to see is that there's work to be done. And I do feel very proud about what we are leaving in these 4 years. I'm amazed at what we've done in 4 years. I'm definitely walking away feeling like we made changes that are lasting. There are procedures in place to really look at the things that need to be looked at, and I'm so grateful for that. And so I have a foundational belief that labor management relationships are the key to our schools being successful. And, you know, I'm moving into a different position, and I will always be a support of whatever we can do to build that bridge, because the experts in our building are the teachers and paraprofessionals that work with students every day. And we need to make sure that their voices are heard. And what I'm super proud of beyond anything else is the way we have elevated student voice on this board. The one thing I did not get in my term was a student on the board with a vote. But who knows, that might come. So I just, I'm grateful that one of the things that we've learned together as a group, as a board, is that equity is not something that we do, it's foundational, involved in everything that we have done and will continue to do. And I appreciate that we've recognized that as a group, and that work will continue to move forward. So it's been super, super fun, you all the evenings and late nights, and I wish the new board all the best, but it's been a true honor. I've learned a lot, and I will be taking all of that with me, and please feel free to reach out anytime. Thank you.
Thank you. I think We've always had a separate meeting, so. But yeah.
Yeah, so I think probably the thing to now would be to transition to the next one, so maybe we can take a little bit of recess.
Transition.
It's recess. I think we're out.
That's subject.
Nothing.
And two.
Our candidates are newly. Okay. So. Our next segment is recognition of our newly elected board members. Official certificate of results of the April 4th, 2023 consolidated election of the high school board of education, Oak Park and River Forest High School is attached. Cook County's clerk's office, after having completed a canvass of all votes cast for the high school board of education, Oak Park and River Forest 200, certified that the listed candidates received the following vote totals. Tim Brandhurst, 26.67% or 4,804 votes. Jonathan Livingston, 27.76% or 5,001 votes. Graham Brisbane, 24.89% or 4,484, and Brian Sitters, 20.67% or 3,723 votes. Congratulations to newly elected board members Graham Brisbane, Jonathan Livingston, and Tim Brandhurst. To speak.
This is our chance to speak.
Is there anything you'd like to say? Yes.
Do you have something you want to say, John?
You go first.
All right. I would like to say.
Yeah.
It's on, it's on.
All right, so I'm first gonna say thank you to my wife Sandy for joining me here tonight. And also thank you to Astrid Barajas, who I've known since she was 5 years old. She's a current OPRF sophomore. And I think of her as a second daughter. And her friend Oliver Crimmins, also a current OPRF sophomore. So I want to thank my family for coming in and being here tonight. And the last thing I would say is, I want to thank the voters of Oak Park and River Forest for the confidence they placed in me. And I look forward to rolling up sleeves and working with students, faculty and staff, the administration and fellow board members toward the best interests of our 3,400 students and their families. Thank you.
So I cry easily, so it's I try to keep it.
The next one here. The next one here.
So it's a tremendous honor to be here with you all, and it's incredibly humbling, and I'm just bringing with gratitude to be here. I wanted to specifically thank Sarah for all of the energy and support that she gave to us, and just amazing. So I just can't express that enough. And also, yeah.
All of us are friends.
Also, just a very very special opportunity to get to know Graham and Tim for joining the board and have that camaraderie was just very special. I'm very grateful for that. I'm grateful to my wife and my son. It's a big commitment to do campaign. It's a big commitment to commit to doing a board at this level, and I am immensely grateful that they gave it their blessing for me to do so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then lastly, I want to just dedicate the win to my younger brother David, who during the campaign passed, and it's a really big thing to for me to be here now, especially going through that. And so this is for him, and yeah, thank you. Very happy to be here.
Is it okay if I speak?
Please.
I just wanted to start by acknowledging the passing of Tank Corner. He was such an important part of our family and our school community for 3 decades. And I'm really grateful to the administration and to the faculty and staff who have done such a nice job over the last week plus in commemorating his life and remembering him appropriately. He's really going to be missed. I have some thank yous. I want to say thank you to Sarah Spivey, especially. I am so grateful for your trust and your confidence and your guidance over these past months. And I'm grateful for your leadership of this board during the pandemic and over the past 8 years. To Ralph Martiri, I think that people in Oak Park forget that you, before you were on this board for the last 4 years, that you led the D90 board for the previous 8, and you were so impactful. To think that a graduating senior this year has benefited from your expertise, if they grew up in River Forest, has benefited from your expertise each of the past 12 years is really extraordinary. And you are truly going to be missed. Gina, I think that you are the departing board member that I most regret not being able to serve with. I think of you as being the conscience of this board and certainly its heart and its soul. And I'm grateful for all that you've contributed. I learn something from you every time you speak. So thank you for your service. To Tom and Fred and Kabrib and Marianne, and certainly to Graham and Jonathan, I just so look forward to working with you. Look forward to getting to know you personally and look forward to serving with you on behalf of the students and the families of our community. And finally, to Greg and Linda and the administration, I'm already getting a sense of how much work you do and the extraordinary quality of it. Similarly, I look forward to getting to know you even better and to working closely with you for the next 4 years. So I'll leave it there. Thanks very much.
One more thing. Can I say one more thing? I wanted to say I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that the only reason I'm here is because of Kabrib. And we coach soccer together, and if we hadn't coached soccer together, I don't think I'd be here right now. So Kabrib, I definitely wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart. That was a special moment, and I'll always cherish that. And yeah, so thank you.
Okay. So although most school boards traditionally mark the seating of new members with some form of ceremony, there was no official oath of office required for school board members until 2006. Additional language was added in 2018. This law required the school board members, before taking their seat on the board, to take an oath of office. Therefore, I will assist in the seating of the members. Mr. Brisbane, Mr. Livingston, and Mr. Brandenborst, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. Okay. I state your name.
I, Graham
I,
Jackson Branchworth,
do solemnly affirm that I will faithfully discharge the duties
do solemnly affirm that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of member of the Board of Education
of the
the
office
office of member of the Board of Education
of Oak Park and River Forest High School D200
of Oak Park
of Oak Park and River Forest High School D200
in accordance with the Constitution of the United States,
in accordance with the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the laws of the state of Illinois to the best of my ability.
and the laws
and the laws of the state of Illinois to the best of my ability.
I further affirm that
I further
Further affirm that
I shall respect taxpayer interests by serving
I shall respect taxpayer interests
by serving
as a faithful protector of the school district's assets.
as a faithful protector of the school district's assets.
I shall encourage and respect
Shall encourage and respect
the free expression of opinion
the free expression of opinion
by my fellow board members
by my fellow board members
and others who seek a hearing before the board,
and others
and others who seek a hearing before the board
while respecting the privacy of students and employees.
while respecting
while respecting the privacy of students and employees.
I shall recognize that a board member
shall recognize
I
the
shall
board
recognize that a board member
has no legal authority as an individual,
has no legal
has no legal authority as an individual,
and that decisions can be made
and the
and decisions can be made
only by a majority vote at a public board meeting.
only by a majority vote
at a public board meeting.
I shall abide by majority decisions of the board
I shall abide by majority decisions of the board
while retaining the right to seek changes
while
while retaining the right to seek changes
in such decisions through ethical and constructive channels.
in
in
such
such decisions through ethical and constructive channels.
As part of the Board of Education
as part of the board
As part of the Board of Education
or Board of School Directors, as we'll do that one. I shall accept the responsibility for my role
I shall accept the responsibility for my role
in the equitable and quality education
in the
in the equitable and quality education
of every student in the school district.
of every student in the school district.
I shall foster with the board
I shall
To
foster
foster with the board
extensive participation of the community,
extensive
participation of the community,
formulate goals,
formulate goals,
define outcomes,
define outcomes,
and set the course for the Oak Park and River Forest High School District 200.
and set the
and
course
set the course for the Oak Park and River Forest High School District 200.
I shall assist in establishing
I
I
shall
shall assist in establishing
a structure in an environment
structure and an environment
designed to ensure all students
designed to ensure all students
have the opportunity to attain their maximum potential
have the
have
opportunity
the opportunity to attain their maximum potential
through a sound organizational framework.
through a sound
through sound organizational framework.
I shall strive to ensure a continuous assessment
I shall strive
I shall strive to ensure a continuous assessment
of student achievement and of student achievement
of student achievement
in all conditions affecting the education
and all
in all conditions affecting the education
of our children in compliance with state law.
of our
of
children
our children in compliance with state law.
I shall serve as education's key advocate
I shall serve
I shall serve as education's key advocate
on behalf of students in our community's school
on
on behalf of students in our community's school
to advance the vision for Oak Park and River Forest High School 200.
to
to
advance
advance the vision for Oak Park and River Forest High School D200.
I shall strive to work together
I shall strive to work together
with the district superintendent
with the district superintendent
to lead the school district toward fulfilling the vision
to lead the district
to lead the school toward fulfilling the vision
the board has created,
the board is
the
created,
board has created,
fostering excellence for every student
fostering excellence for every student
in the areas of academic skill,
in the areas of academic skills,
knowledge, citizenship, and personal development.
Knowledge, citizenship, and personal development.
Thank you. You are sworn,
It wasn't really old, it was an auditory.
we had to memorize it in Latin, so think about it.
Okay, I have a motion that we provide copies to future board members if they haven't. Read them. So they're struggling to remember.
Yes, that's what makes
me separate, I think, that case.
great. Thank you. Okay. Please join us. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Our first order of business as a new board is the election of officers. So, nominations are now in order for the office of president for a one-year term. I call for any nominations for president.
I nominate Tom Crossing.
Or any others nominations.
I move nominations be closed.
I hereby, okay. So hearing no further nominations, I will declare the nominations for presidents are closed. I hereby declare Tom Cossey elected by acclamation and direct the secretary to so record in the minutes. Okay. Nominations are now open in order for the office of vice president for a one-year term. I call for any nomination for vice president. I nominate Fred Arkin for vice president.
We don't need seconds, right? So
No.
second. Okay.
Any further nominations? Hearing no further nominations, I will declare the nominations for vice president are closed. I hereby declare Fred Arkin elected by acclamation and direct the secretary to so record in the minutes.
So recorded.
Thank you. And our final officer is for office of secretary of the board. So nominations are now in order for the office of secretary for a one-year term. I call for any nominations for secretary.
I'd like to nominate Tim Brandhorst. Sorry, Tim Brandhorst. I'd like to nominate Tim Brandhorst.
Good. We got any other? Hearing no further nominations, I will declare the nominations for secretary are closed. I hereby declare Tim Brandhorst elected by acclamation and direct the secretary to record in the minutes.
So recorded.
Okay. We have completed our elections and congratulations to our newly elected board officers. We're not going to close. No.
I think because of the time, it might be best to delay closed sections.
Thank you.
So we will skip the closed session and move to our next order of business, which will be public comment.
So tonight I have one public comment, I think Ms. Floria already made his comment, so I have one in person, and I have one to be written into minutes.
Okay.
Speaking for tonight is Ms. Alan Welch.
Oh, sorry, you want
Yeah.
to, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Please.
Yeah, okay.
Good evening. I'm here to thank you for your leadership with respect to approving the scope of funding for Project 2. You committed countless volunteer hours to arrive at your thoughtful, fiscally responsible decision. Thank you. I brought with me a different kind of thank you note from a small representation of the hundreds, maybe thousands, of current elementary school students in districts 97 and 90, in this case, some fifth graders from Whittier, who will benefit from this tangible legacy. These students and their families may not realize how quickly their freshman year will arrive. I can attest to the rapidity with which these students will be planning what to wear to freshman orientation. And thanks to you, they will be able to experience all 4 years of the incredible facility improvements that will be made to the physical education spaces. Their mental and physical well-being will be improved as a result in ways we really cannot quantify. It's pretty. I also want to share that my engagement with this process has validated for me my commitment to doing my part as a parent, community member, and taxpayer to ensure the success not only of Project 2 and the rest of the Imagine projects, but also the myriad of other opportunities you will all undertake to help ensure OPRF is truly a space where things are best. Mr. Henry, I took to heart your comments at the last meeting. You asked that those of us who have shown up here for Project 2 continue to show up. And I commit to you and also to the new board members that you will, like it or not, continue to see me here. By putting Project 2 into motion, you will have greater capacity to push your attention on areas such as academic achievement, mental health, safety, accessibility, equity, and more. I will be watching, listening, and heeding the call should my voice be helpful. I want to thank the outgoing board members for their service. And I have a specific note of gratitude to Ms. Harris, who I had the pleasure of witnessing in action in her role at Julian when my daughter was a middle schooler. You are a woman of grace, compassion, strength, and quiet, powerful leadership, and I look forward to seeing what each of the 3 departing board members do next. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay. We will move into the instruction section of our agenda. So Dr. Jensen, would you like to take the first item?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first item we have, we have for instruction this evening is the first look at the instructional materials and textbook adoption recommendations that we have compiled this school year. Dr. Fiorenzo will be presenting this, and we plan to bring this back to the board in 2 weeks for approval. So this time I'll turn it over to Dr. Fiorenzo.
Thank you so much. So you will see that we are requesting approval for 5 textbooks for adoption, texts for adoption in the English courses. Those were provisionally used last year, and so we'd like to use them next school year in after they've been adopted. There will be no ask for additional funds for that. In history, we are asking for $12,000 for 2 textbooks, one as a result of one of their courses. The textbook was in its 7th year, and so this new textbook will provide some additional new historiography. One is due to the new AP African American Studies course. In science, we're asking for $126,381. That is for 1 novel adoption, 1 manual, and 4 textbooks. Those textbooks are a result of the new AP course, the AP Environmental Science textbook being the better online platform, so they're asking for that new book. The AP Seminar and Astronomy textbooks both offer better tutorials and are better aligned to NGFX. Fine and Applied Arts is asking for 3 new textbooks for a total of $5,392. One is for adolescent development for educators, which is a result of a new course that we have proposed for next year. Fashion merchandising, this textbook has been outdated since 2006, so they're asking for a new textbook for that course. Clothing and construction, that course currently doesn't have a textbook. In mathematics, we are asking for approximately $50,000 for a new textbook for integrated mathematics. That textbook will be a 5-year, will last at least 5 years. World languages, we are asking for 1 textbook for 2 French courses, totaling $17,950. Previously, the teachers made their own resources and materials. This textbook is has a digital resource and is aligned to the AP standards. All of the textbook adoption is totaling $211,723.
Questions or board members? Ben?
Yes, but it's my understanding that the costs of these are all within the budget, so this is not really an ask for additional funds. Right?
It's not an ask for additional money.
Other questions?
I'm glad to see that the French teachers to make their own materials anymore. Sorry, good job.
I have one question, seeing no other. You covered it briefly in some of your comments, but you know, of these from an electronic standpoint, you mentioned a few of these were electronically available.
Yes.
What's the strategy there? I mean, is it to make electronic available, or what? How do we deal with that? Do we choose books that are electronically available as a preference, or?
I think when we look at the digital platform, it's easier for students. It's contained on a laptop. They're not carrying around a big, thick textbook like probably you and I had to carry around. The tutorials and the other supplemental materials that are contained within the digital resource are much more easy to use. Kids can use them right there. And if you have frequently heard the SAT and other standardized tests are going to a digital platform. So the more our students manipulate tutorials and supplemental materials on an online platform, the more adept it will be when it comes time for those standardized tests.
Excellent.
That's also becoming more and more the standard at the college level.
Yeah, it makes sense. I just didn't know how. I recall earlier that there was still some, earlier meeting a decade ago, a little bit of a pushback. So it sounds like the runway is good. That's great to know. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. And we now move to finance. Yeah. And representing finance.
Surprisingly. I know that, well.
Go ahead, Dr. Johnson, go ahead.
That started off so well, I don't know if I want to. So representing finances are Director of Communications, Karen Sullivan. This is because this is a donation that is coming forth from the Booster Club related to our sesquicentennial, and Karen Sullivan is leading the charge from a district administrative team for the sesquicentennial commemorative activities that will run all throughout next school year. And so this presentation is about a small component of that, not the whole shebang. We're just simply talking about this donation. So I'll turn it over to you, Karen, to kick things off.
Yeah, and Fiona was there, the president of the boosters, I know was planning to attend. She had a commitment till about 8:15. So yeah, so unfortunately she's not here yet. So I'll just dive right into the boosters have very generously offered to donate $50,000 for a legacy item on campus to honor the 150th anniversary. of OPRF. And after discussing it, we came up with the idea, of having our art teacher, Tracy Van Dennen, who is an internationally recognized muralist, mosaic muralist, create a mural on an outside location of the school. You've probably seen his murals on Julian and Brooks, where he's worked with students. He's worked with students all over in community groups all over to do various murals. So if you've seen them on the underpasses along Lakeshore Drive, that's his work. And then another artist, Carolyn Elaine, is somebody who has done a lot of mosaic work in Chicago and suburbs, again, working with students. And Tracy and Elaine have worked together, but never here in Oak Park. So they would like to collaborate. And in the packet, there was like put together a little slide deck that showed examples of both of their work. And then the last page is a sketch of what they would like to create on the west side of the building. Facing onto the mall, we made sure it's a spot that is not going to be torn down in any of the future projects of Imagine. And so, yeah, they went to work with students. So through the Oak Park Area Arts, I'm getting the name wrong. Oak Park.
The Arts Council.
The Arts Council. They employ young people, young adults every summer to do various art projects around town. So they would like to collaborate. So in addition to the donation from the boosters, the Arts Council will also, they also have a budget to hire students. And this year they would like the student project to be to work with Tracy and Elaine to create the mural on our building.
I think maybe before we open it for any questions, and if you wouldn't mind opening up the attachment for that board item. And perhaps just for the current moment, scroll down to the very last slide so we can see the proposed image, which is admittedly a draft and certainly would evolve throughout the not only the continuation of the design process, but also through the creation process of the work. But it gives you an idea of where this is and how it would be incorporated into the west facing facade of the school. So
There you go.
yeah, thank you.
So they would build this, they actually don't build it on a wall of the building, they would build it in the auto shop actually is available. And there would be a time when they would invite community members to come in and lay down pieces. So it's really it's a passion of both the artists to make their projects very community based.
And if I could, I also, thanks Karen for allowing me to jump in here. I do also want to point out kind of a bit, and Tracy would do this so much better than I would. So my apologies for how clumsy this will be. But you'll note that you have the traditional crest above the athletic hallway there to the right-hand side of the image. And the idea is that in some way, this image kind of moves from left to right by design with various elements that are in that crest kind of in the whole design. So you might have missed it by a quick look, but if you look in the bottom right, for example, just to the left of the doors, you kind of see the river. See that is in the academic crest for the high school. And so it pulls up that. You also see various leaf and forest images from the Oak Park and the forest theme that kind of comprise the photography stuff of the crest. So yeah, just want to draw attention to that. Erin, is there anything I missed with that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I feel like I should know this, but that clock is already there. The clock.
Yeah, so the clock was a gift from two classes, I believe, in the 1950s. It hasn't been working. We have, in determining this was the best location, we tried to figure out what, can we get the clock working? We can. So that will be repaired and put back into working order.
Other for print?
Yeah, let me, before I miss my question. Let me just make a brief statement is that I've always been a huge supporter of the Booster Club. My dad was one of the first members of the club. I benefited from the first gift of the Booster Club. And my question is this: I really question whether this is an appropriate expenditure of the Booster Club's funds. It's always been my understanding that the Booster Club's funds were raised and to make appropriations which enhance the students' experience in the school, whether it's curricular or extracurricular. So I'm struggling with this, and I need to be comfortable with the answer to that question, because this is an aesthetic. I think it's beautiful. I'd love to see it on the building, but I'm just wondering if it's an appropriate expenditure for the Booster Club.
I can respond, or at least partially respond to that now, if.
No, go ahead.
I'm okay on a question on that.
Yeah, or it could be, that could be answered throughout the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think that might be wise, because while we've had some conversations with Fiona about that very question, the Booster Club has discussed and debated that throughout this process, even before they brought this idea to us. And I think it would be best for Fiona to speak to kind of how that conversation unfolded with the club and how they came to the conclusion they did. So we have one of two options with that, I suppose. We could hold that question for the moment. Maybe we go on to other items, and because it's a committee meeting, we could go back to this today before we close the meeting. Alternatively, we could work with her, like you said, for 2 weeks, bring that back for discussion at the regular meeting. So,
Yeah. Okay, just very.
So it's really an aesthetic comment, so take it for whatever that's worth. I really like Tracy Van Dinen's work, and the other artist I wasn't familiar with, but I looked at the images and also beautiful. They do amazing things with faces, both of them, in mosaic work, which I love. And my kids went to Brooks, one of them's there now, and I love the mural there. I feel like the murals at Brooks and Julian are challenging and engaging in a great way. And they have empower and create, respect. They have these faces, take heart, go farther, achieve, learn. Like they've got meat to them, and it just feels kind of bland to me. So maybe just feedback for the artists, and if they love it, and I realize they're like working with that clock, and do kind of like the leaves, like they've got like time passing, and that's kind of nice for a school. So, and I don't know, it seems like a kind of inoffensive design. And I wonder if we can do more, so.
thank you. Yeah, we'll definitely.
So a follow up to Fred's question, and just from it. The tradition of excellence display was funded by the boosters. So that's, whether that's again inconsistent, that was a prior incident. I just missed as I was
That
thinking.
was a $40,000 gift that they
Yes.
gave to fund the wall, the redoing of the wall.
Okay. I just thought of it right now. Really our board action is whether we accept the gift that or not. That's the discussion. The agenda item that will be on the will be pushed forward. Now, what the gift, obviously what it looks like is what you choose to accept. So I just want to make sure we're clear on what is being asked of us.
Can I add a respond? Absolutely, the action before the board in 2 weeks will be whether to accept the donation. Feedback on how it looks aesthetically from the board, while not required by policy or something that the board votes on, right, is certainly something that we welcome. I mean, this is designed to be, when Tracy Van Dyne was speaking with the Booster Club, about a month or so ago. He used a phrase that kind of stuck with me. He wanted something that was timeless, not timely. And is that the intent with this? And so the question is, does it kind of hit that mark, right? And so I think, feedback with that kind of concept in mind, or any concept, but certainly that concept in mind, I think would be welcome, right? I mean, just as general feedback for the artists.
Yeah, and I would, I would have put that thought, being as sesquicentennial, is it intended to be something that is, this was 2023, right, a capsule, or is it something to really honor the full 150 years and the next 150 years? So I appreciate that perspective. Okay. Are there any other questions on the donation? Graham?
I just one question. I'm curious, how many current OBRF students could be expected to apprentice with master artists to design, construct, and install a mosaic?
That's a good question. I will have to get the answer for it.
Is that good answer? So you're talking about employment, right? Or some,
Yeah, again, we need a precise answer for you, and I don't want to, for some reason, number 30 slipped in my mind, Graham, but
And I'm only curious just because it would be cool if OPRS students actually, were materially involved in the design, construction, and installation.
that part is a resounding yes. Students will be materially involved in the entire process, and with a mural like this, there is really no creation process that's completely independent from the design process, right? That's part of how it unfolds. So it would be both a combination of their artistic vision and their technical skill.
Yeah, I'm just curious if it's a couple or.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's
It's many.
many, but I can find out.
well, and if you could even elaborate, just to kind of, to add quantification. This is a donation of 50,000 with, I believe, supplemental resources, correct? That's right. So how much of that, how much total money is going into, is helping is going to our students for their efforts? Because that might get back to
We can quantify that for sure.
question, right? Directory. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Karen. And our second item on finance is our stipend recommendation, Dr. Johnson.
Okay, I believe we have two people here to present this. I don't see our athletic director, but I'm not sure that. But to present this is an annual item that we bring to our board for approval. These are stipend approvals and adjustments based off language that is in our negotiated contract with our teachers and based off of student enrollment and evolving participation in various clubs and activities throughout the year. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Sanders and Ms. Hawkins to get things started.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. So as Dr. Johnson mentioned, we bring stipend recommendations to the board annually. The stipend recommendations are developed by the joint committee that consists of equal number of faculty members and administrators. And we use the outline process for recommending any changes to the stipends. We have a matrix that was developed and presented to the board last year, and it's part of the attachment. And then we also have a process for any new clubs that they have to start as a pilot. And I will pass it on to Ms. Hawkins to give you more details about how these recommendations are done.
All right, so this year we are asking for a new stipend for girls wrestling. That's it for athletics as far as new stipend. In the activities department, we're asking for a new stipend for future medical leaders, women in STEM, knitting and crochet club. And then our proposed stipend adjustments are for cheer, boys and girls cross country, boys and girls swim, science Olympiad, speech team, environmental club, and wheel throwing club, which is the club that supports our MG Goals program.
Just wanted to add to this, the attachment that is in board docs has a detailed rationale for each of the clubs and the new athletic stipend as well. I also wanted to mention what the cost to the district would be. So the total recommended increase is $43,859.82, and that's based on the rates that we have in negotiated faculty senate agreement for next school year. I also wanted to draw attention to its alignment with EDF. So currently, evidence-based funding shows that we understand student activities. And so this recommendation of the increase is in alignment with EDF. I also want to point out that in the past several years, we were under budgeted with stipend increases. And 1 year, given that was during COVID, but we didn't bring any stipend recommendations to the board now. One other stipend that I would like to recommend behalf of administration is stipends to our head nurse, Julie Toretta. And this stipend is aligned to what other department chairs receive in the district. So the health services department that is run by Julie currently doesn't have a second allocation, but the head nurse is responsible for supervision of all operations of health services office, including evaluation of the registered nurse secretary. You know, the work that the health department did during COVID, maintaining ongoing communication with Oak Park Health Department, management of all district health records. It was extraordinary, and these requirements of management of health records and completing health data for district and state required reports is an ongoing requirement. So the administration feels that it is justified that that work would be compensated similarly to other department heads. Any questions? Answer to you.
Okay, one question and 2 comments, I guess. So my question is just about the diving. We're adding one, sorry, I'm looking for where that is, it's in here somewhere. Oh yeah, for girls swim and boys swim, because of the lack of diving facilities on campus, coach needed, etc. That's all fine for now. We will presumably have diving facilities on the campus. So what happens when that it just
We would revisit that stipend, yeah, correct.
okay, so I just wanted to check that. And then I just want to note that my daughter is in that club and is loving it. So I know some of the new clubs, and so she really likes it. And for knitting crochet, I was pleased to see that you actually have several people who identify as male who have joined. I teach it in my post-colonial class when we're doing Industrial Revolution. I teach them how to knit and crochet in class. And it's always exciting to see like a bunch of boys were like, this is great, I love it. Like one of them was like, I'm gonna make a huge black Afghan for my bed. And one of the like, football playing guys, this is awesome. It's also good for ADHD, so it is a focus that can be helpful. Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Other questions?
Please, sorry, please, okay, so I'm sure this will be the first of many dumb questions I'm gonna ask. As a rookie, trying to get my wheels, but, so this is super interesting. This is just a report on the changes of clubs. But does there exist a master list of all clubs that is produced annually, and you've got all the demographic data? Okay, what time of year does that usually get reported to the board?
So the list of all clubs and sports is an attachment in the collective bargaining agreement between Board of Education and Faculty Senate. And then demographics is reported in September.
Yeah, there's an extracurricular report that always goes to the board in the fall.
Awesome.
All the previous years, so you see the previous year in its full breadth.
Okay, and this is one of a couple of reports I've seen in this board book that's got demographic data presented in table format. Do you ever do
graphics, like they would show like a pie chart of.
If you would like to see it that way, I'm an art teacher, I'd be happy. I'd be happy to switch.
Lots of to work on, so. Thank you.
And there are no dumb questions. This is sure.
Tim?
Yeah, I'm just curious about the nurse stipend. It seems like a curious approach to just have an annual stipend for that work rather than thinking about doing it as an increase in salary or as a promotion into a different kind of a position. Can you talk about that, Roxana?
Absolutely, that just mirrors how the compensation is structured for other department heads. There are negotiated salaries that are determined by years of experience and educational attainment of faculty members. And for the department heads specifically, that is not like a guaranteed position per year to year. That's why it's a stipend, because somebody could step down from being the department chair, but they would continue being a faculty member. So we wouldn't want to, change their salary every time that happens. Does that answer your question?
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Okay. I had two thoughts. One was what Graham said, which is we get the request for what we want for resources now, and then we get a different report really, which is the outcome, which is how many students are in that. And if there's any way to kind of bring them together, it would be helpful, because you're saying, here's what I need, and here's what I hope to get for what I need, which is the total enrollment. I mean, this is all, these stipends are all to address the premise that we want more students involved in activities. And we report on what that is, and this is the resource required. I don't know if that's possible, but especially in the eyes of someone who's new, you're only getting half the picture. So that somehow or other be able to see that information, right?
We will certainly consider it, but my only, the first thought initial without, having spent any time considering it is that here we're reflecting what the stipend committee has discussed, and then we're looking specifically at participation in new clubs, new activities. The audit report is like overall picture of every single club and athletic activity that we have in the district. I don't know, Angie.
Right, I mean, this is definitely, we can pull the demographic, like we can pull that information when we bring the stipends forward in the spring. But also then do it again in September as the overall.
Yeah, just as an attachment, just to kind of relate there to, because even Roxana, what you said, I mean, this is only the adds and the deletions, but it also assumes that everything else is then going to be retained, correct?
Not necessarily, so there is here there is one that club that is being eliminated, so we'll look. But
No, but I'm saying that you're either saying add, delete, or keep.
correct.
And so the keep is for all of the other clubs. We're talking about all the activity. It's just we're only focused on the differences from a financial standpoint.
So just for clarification, would you like to see the report attached to this request and then again in September, or do you want to combine so we only do it once a year?
So I think it's kind of that, I think I would like us to go back and think and talk about this a little bit, because we do get annual reports in September, because we want to conclude the previous year and make sure the data we're bringing is complete and we have what we wouldn't want to do is only do this in the spring and never give like a year in review report to the board. We want to get rid of that. So I think probably we'll leave the talk. There might be a way where we can say, hey, here's the report we had from last year. here are the obvious changes for this school year that are driving these changes here right now. So we have it within the context of the previous year, and then we can revisit that kind of conversation in September. But let's take it back and talk about it, and then we'll figure out the rest of the time.
Like, even if it's like, just, yeah, here it is, just that because, right?
No, what I was gonna say is there's always been in that end of the year report that comes in September, has always been along with it is a kind of an academic and attendance component to it, which you wouldn't be able to give at this point because the year.
Yeah, I have one more question. For the club that's going away, the Minority Students Alliance is being taken under the Office of Equity. What does that mean in terms of, like, is it still a club? Are the activities being run by?
So after reviewing it, and this was my first year in this position, I looked through it and it wasn't actually a club. It's a national organization. And after talking with Dr. Applewhite, it just made more sense that she would take on that. It's not, a club is not the appropriate term for organization. Because it involves conferences. It's not something that students meet every week. Or put on events. It's more conference, workshop, special programming type of thing. So we just felt it was better out of her office. It made more sense.
And I guess my only concern would be, if we saw a drop in student participation, if it was not listed with clubs or whatever, that's not a concern then.
Yeah. And currently there were no students enrolled in it in September. And so that's why when Dr. Applewhite and I, kind of talked about it, it made more sense that it would fall under her department.
Right, yeah, just kind of following up on that would be then, funding work for it. I mean, in the.
Right, it'll come, the funding will come out of Dr. Applewhite's department.
I was wondering, if when you share more comprehensive demographic information with us, could we also see, I see you've broken down race and gender and, but could we also see what students are participating in these clubs that have disabilities or are in special ed?
Yes.
My other comment is, I do appreciate the reference to the evidence-based funding model, which just, is a benchmark of where our resources are. This is a ask for more resources, so it's important that, we live within what our projection model says. And so if there are resources going here, I just want the confirmation that this will be offset, or we will be living within what our budget and projection model are. This is not supplemental.
So yeah, it's an increase in one area, but we have looked at where we recommending increases in other areas, and we will be below what the projections were specifically for administrative salaries.
It's within our projection.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions before we move on? Okay, I thank you. And we now move into the world of policy.
Can I say something really quickly before we transition into that? I want to ask a quick question. So we had a conversation about the Booster Club donation a moment ago. Our Booster Club president is now here. Are we comfortable with those questions being on the table right now? And we'll bring those back 2 weeks, or do we want to try to entertain that discussion a little bit thoroughly before we go into policy? I don't know if we've totally settled that completely, right? You're good with it. Okay, great.
Okay. So. We would like to, we have, policies for first reading.
Can you do those or, normally I think you just list them through.
Can I ask, have all the new board members served on boards before and are they familiar with what policies for first reading and second reading, like what that process is?
Yeah, I was on the D97 board.
So I just want to be sure that everyone knows what we're doing here.
I'm making sure Tim. I can't see.
He's seen nodded, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Get better eyes than me. Okay, so we will just click through them and ask if there are questions on the specific policies. And we will not belabor them if there are none. So we'll start with 2:110. Any questions or issues? Seeing none, I will move to 4:60, purchases and contracts. So I do have a question on this one, which I you know, I'm trying to get a gist of what we're really trying to change here. Really, I guess, understand what is our practice. There is a definition of who has student contact. Okay, so that I think that is spelled out, but our practice, especially in light of what will be a lot of construction work, right, and a lot of workers for screening workers as it relates to this policy.
Yeah, so is the question, does it apply to those contractual workers?
Does it apply and is that what we have been doing? Because there are changes in it.
Yeah, so this, we have checked that in the past, and Dr. Sanders, please confirm that if you want to come up and speak to this a little bit more thoroughly. But yes, it does apply on the roads here, but I'll pause it in the past, she can speak to.
We actually have a statutory definition of what direct contact with students means. It's the possibility of care, supervision, guidance, or control of children and students, or routine interaction with children and students. So we believe that would only pertain to those contractors who provide direct services to students, not the instruction.
Okay, good, thank you for that.
Okay. Any others on that policy?
Roxanna, there are a number of things here that relate to that same kind of shift. You might want to not go too far.
Yeah, you're gonna get your steps in. 5:30, hiring process and criteria. Any questions? I have one. Because of what it states, which I find a bit peculiar. It says the board president keeps to keep a conviction record confidential, but not any other board member, or it seems peculiar to me to single out the board president.
I hope you've been doing that. I think the best way to interpret this is that it's the responsibility to ensure that is happening in the district. Right?
Yeah.
And so that is certainly the responsibility that we would take on, all jokes aside.
Okay. And then I have, since I'm having fun here, since it has board president, if you read where it says policy to hiring an applicant for a position, it's in yellow. It's on the next page. It's the big paragraph. Seems like it's missing a letter or something doesn't read right to me. Does that read right to everyone else? The word involved doesn't seem to be. Right? Am I missing it?
I think one challenge here is that these pages are not numbered.
Yeah.
So what section?
This is policy 530 that we're talking about, so I think it's on the third page, although it bridges between page 2 and 3.
Oh, yeah.
It says prior to hiring an applicant for a position, involve direct contact with students and our children.
Maybe just in the next.
I think as an engineer, my grammar it is jumping.
Yeah, it should be
Okay,
involving. Involving.
something, it's not, doesn't read right, so,
Well, yeah, involved.
okay,
We'll make that adjustment.
thank you. Okay. Any others on that one? We'll move on. 590, abused and neglected child reporting. Any questions? Hearing none. 5:125 personal technology and social media usage and conduct.
I have questions.
Please.
So, the edits look good on social media and personal technology, so I'm just curious, under your own conduct on the next page. Compared to the high standards for professional and appropriate conduct required by policy 5120. So I didn't look up that policy and it would be helpful to see it. Since my understanding is this is saying, even when people are on their own personal social media, on their own personal phones, laptops, etc., we're still expecting our teachers and staff to adhere to these high standards for professional appropriate conduct. And so I'm concerned. There's certainly been many instances elsewhere of gay teachers being, fired for this kind of, because of something they said on social media, not on professional social media, on their own personal social media. I would not expect that to happen here, but I'm curious what this is. So you can maybe get me a copy of it and I can look at it.
Yeah.
If that's the best way to.
Yeah, absolutely, we can do 5120, and just for other people, I'll illustrate what is looking at this live right now, so they can see the distinction, but the policy here, the part of the policy that you're referencing here is not a part that has been changed, right, with this, so this is actually, maybe even more to your point, this is current board policy.
Yeah. So if
That language is.
yeah, if it's, there's just such a ongoing, ever-changing arena, right? This question of, we just this past week, I think, did a presentation on social media for board members, right? And so I think the rules are constantly changing, social norms are constantly changing. And I just want to know that what we're expecting of our staff is reasonable, to the best of current. Does that make sense? So.
I'm sure we'll leave that for the board.
Okay, thank you. Any others on that? I think my question, I think, a lot of changes in the different devices, et cetera. So are we okay with just and other devices as a way of kind of capturing things from our legal perspective? We basically got rid of most of these things that are dinosaurs, right? But by tomorrow, there'll be something new. So,
yeah,
seems okay, but I'm not a lawyer. To brief. All right, any other questions on that policy? Okay, we will move to 5:150 personal records. Any questions on the changes there? Okay, 5:260 student teachers. I have a question, which is in the right-hand column, it says consult the board attorney for guidance regarding whether student teachers who are typically unpaid qualify as employees. Have we done that, and what has the consultation yielded for our district?
No, we have not. We have never really treated student teachers as employees. But we'll explore that before we come back into this.
I know some districts pay their student teachers. We do not, so they do not receive any compensation from the district, so in that regard, they will not be considered employees if they're not an OT.
So therefore, because I mean, just reading it, qualify as employees who must undergo the review, the sexual misconduct related employment history review. So I guess the question is, if we don't treat them as employees, do they have that review?
Yeah, the question is, state's law apply in that way, and how does it apply?
I believe not, substitute teachers, yes, because they're alone with students. Student teachers are typically not alone with students, they're under supervision of this licensed faculty. But we do require a background check on our students, teachers.
Other questions on that policy?
Sounds like you're saying you can require a background check on top of whatever the law is, right? Like, even if the law does not require it because they're not paid and they're not employees, we can still make it our policy to do the background checks, right? You just like you would parent volunteers, right? Field trips and so on.
It's a little different because we receive a request from the university to apply to student teacher, we typically we request background check as part of it. They do not submit an application, an employment application where they would list previous places of employment that would enable us then to conduct the reference check on required benefits.
Okay. Let's keep moving. 6:135 accelerated placement program. Any questions on those, on that? Hearing none, I'm going to keep moving. 6:230 library media program. Questions? Moving on, 820 community use of school facilities. Hearing none. 340E exhibit checklist for the superintendent employment contract negotiation process. Okay. 440 incurring debt. $5,285 drug and alcohol testing for school bus and commercial vehicle drivers. Yes.
I guess my question involves around that we have a lot of our staff and faculty driving our buses, our white buses. And this I think is more designed for an actual large school bus. So those people are exempt from this, because I know faculty members, staff members, do that. So I'm just wondering where they fall in terms of this. You're asking about current employees who would drive those white buses. How does this policy apply to those folks? Or if it does? I'm not sure if it applies. We'll see what we can find out. I would imagine our employees would otherwise be covered for this, and so this policy is designed to bring folks who are not otherwise employed directly in the district into that role, but I will double check that for you folks.
Any other questions on that particular policy? 6210 instructional materials.
I just wondered, what is meant by evenly proportioned?
I need your help directing me to.
Sorry, that first paragraph, all listed classrooms and learning centers should be equipped with an evenly proportioned wide assortment of instructional materials.
I'm sure that means fairly distributed throughout all courses who would need them. So you don't have some courses who have and or some, classes that have and some that do not.
Also, it's by class. I originally, I would have read that as being discrimination based, like, equity issues, et cetera. So I'm like, that could be clearer if that's what is meant, like the later, like, pieces are very particular, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But that first sentence is confusing.
Yeah, so I think the unit is classrooms though, right? All district classrooms and learning centers should have the, with evenly proportioned instructional materials, but and actually for clarifying too, everybody else, that is existing policy.
Yeah.
Right, not changing what they're proposing.
But what we're doing here now is we're reviewing.
Absolutely, I don't say,
Policy.
I'm just clarifying.
With
Changes in
recommended.
So you don't have to fix it, but I think it's unclear. So.
Well, let's see, and Marianne, what was earlier when the materials that were instructional materials brought forth on our French class because they were making their own, right? So that was not evenly proportioned. Hence, that was a move to adhere to policy.
Excellent, well done. Look at us.
870, accommodating individuals with disabilities. Questions?
Let's actually get into compliance with it.
4:, so these last two, and I think for the benefit of especially our newer board members, all of the policies that we've just gone through are existing policies that are, what is press? Their agent, what's how do you describe what press is?
They are a state-driven agency that monitors our policies and ensures that we are in legal compliance with any new laws that come out of Springfield that we have to adhere to. So they do the heavy lifting for us.
So all of the ones we've been through were ones that were reviewed by and recommended by them for modifications to do as Dr. Johnson said. The last two, which we now will cover, are ones that are being made by the district itself, independent of press. So I think they're noted as such, but just want to call that. So the first one is 420, the fund balance policy. And so will you speak to it, Dr. Johnson, please?
Yeah, so this really is a product of the CFC conversations. In fact, I know all of you have followed the conversations that we've had with the funding of Project 2 specifically as it relates to 20 and how we should leverage the fund balance for this and any future projects. This change in policy is meant to memorialize the recommendation that came out of CFC to narrow the range of what our fund balance was, so that it is clear that, you know, having a fund balance that gets up to 75% is really not best practice. And it's best to keep it in that 25 to 50% range. There were some variations throughout the conversations in CFC as to what exactly that range. They settled on, you know, there was general consensus fairly earlier on that the range should be 25%, and there was a question as to where that 25% should be applied, meaning should it be, you know, 30 to 55 or whatever, but the last recommendation came out was 25 to 50. So we have two members of CFC who are here too in both Tom and Bree. So if you want to speak to anything that I missed there, feel free.
You got it.
Nope, it's there. This was the original policy was put in by the Financial Advisory Committee, but were recommended 10 years earlier because there were no requirements, and so now this is an enhancement of that. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Item number 2, it reads of operating cash flows. Is cash flows really the right term for this? Isn't it expenses?
CFO Cindy Sitter, what do you think? Operating cash flow or annual expenses is, I think, is the question. Apologize for putting you on the spot with it.
Cash flows was in the current policy of 25. So that's how it's described is, so I think all this was doing was changing the 75% down to 50.
Correct.
But yeah, I guess we're not gonna solve this here, right?
Right, no, it's for first read, but yes, go ahead.
But, you know, item 5 is, you know.
Operating expenses.
It may be operating expenses, but the terminology under 2, I'm not even,
Should
yeah.
be consistent.
Yes, it doesn't, I think, excellent point. The words are different in 2 and 5.
The actual meaning of what is cash flow versus expense are 2 different things.
Correct. So I think
I
that,
think it needs to be looked at in context of the entire policy.
correct.
But I do think operating expenses is typically what fund balance refers to.
Yeah, cash flows have a specific meaning in the world of accounting, so I don't actually want.
Yeah.
We're probably not really intending to say cash.
Yeah, I think you're finding something that is not, that has been missed and needs to be enhanced.
All right, so we can explore that and also make sure that whatever the solutions we come up with is applied throughout the entire policy, not just that policy that's quoted in this excerpt here. Anything else to add, Cindy?
Yeah, so part of it is when you look at this, it's towards the way the original policy was written.
Yeah.
We're talking about the cash flow, just the operating expenses, not the total cash flow. So that's what the difference is in here, when you're talking about the 25 to 50%. So it's a difference of operating versus totals. So I see what you're saying about the cash flow, it should be expenses. That's probably what we could change it to, it probably is just a cash.
Okay. And so again, procedurally here, we have policies for first read that we will be voting on in 2 weeks. And then we have second read, right, which will be in June. So we have that, correct?
Sorry, say that again?
I believe that is the process, that we'll do the second read and then the final vote.
These will be voted upon in 2 weeks as accepting the first read, correct?
Yes.
And then they will come for second read in 4 weeks.
We will review the process and get back.
Okay. They need to be, their second read, so we have a chance to catch that in.
Second reading in action?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good, Greg. All right, and our last policy then is 7180 prevention of in response to bullying, intimidation, and harassment.
This is intended for students, field students. Correct?
Yeah, this portion of the policy is regarding students, policy to 7.
Right, so we have a learning environment, also a social environment, so I think that's missing. And I'm saying that particularly because our young students are here learning and working, but also here developing socially as well. So we have the purpose or their effective extension in terms of just school work performance or creating household, so on and so forth. I think we should offer the social in there or something, because that is about creating respect, kids, environment,
Mental health.
exactly, because my kindergarten's going through this thing, address it. And it affects my life, and affecting my household, and it was, and it's,
And this is what the same students are
right,
arguing as well, right, in the
Exactly.
presentation.
it's more than just learning. It's one. It's walls.
So the edit, suggested edit would be instead of learning/working environment, learning social working.
Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever they can do is maybe become this social. Mental, social.
The very last part of
The
that.
very last,
Yes, thank you.
and well, I was gonna go back, so if anyone else has any comments on this.
Yeah, I have a comment, which is, here you have a policy. And we're defining harassment, and I would think. That there is some. Standard of definition of harassment, and maybe that, that are we. Coming up with our own definition?
Thank you. Let me clarify that. We are not actually, so.
Okay,
Actually, Dr. Apple, I noticed that this was missing, and this was consulted, so go ahead.
So there was no definition of harassment in any of the policies. So, when I brought this up to Dr. Johnson, it came across my desk that, we were having issues and students couldn't, define what harassment was. So when we were going through the policy, there was not a definition. So I wish Dr. Johnson felt like there should be a definition. We had several policies that brought up harassment, but not a clear definition defining it for students or parents. So when they were bringing issues of harassment, some things weren't harassment, so it was kind of hard to refer to the policy to explain to them what those things actually were. So we took it to the attorneys. The attorney came back with a definition, and so we are now including it in the applicable policy.
so we went to our attorneys, and this is what they said, this is a. Definition of harassment.
Yes.
All right, that's.
And it's very close to what the US Equal Employment.
Yeah, I mean, I would, yeah,
Yeah.
anytime I interpret it as we were kind of creating our own definition. Because this is in our own policy, so,
Under advisement.
okay.
And
Mary
then I was only just gonna go back to, like, came up with an edit for the thing that was bugging me, so 6 to 10. With an evenly proportioned, if it's an appropriately proportioned, I think that would take care of my concern. Does that make sense to you?
I love it, thank you.
So that we don't raise the equity issues of even, right, like appropriately, then it's much more clearly like per classes and class sizes and things.
Thank you. Okay. That completes our review, and as was noted, these will come before us in 2 weeks with the edits and with a motion to move it to approve and move to second reading, right? Very good. With that said, we now have future agenda items. So does any board member have anything they would want to be added to a future board meeting?
I'm wondering if, somewhere in policy, if we're at a point in time where we should be memorializing the policy, how we ought to be, applying or reacting or operating in terms of the evidence-based financing. So what I'm saying is that should we have a policy that directs the board in certain ways? So that things don't get out of control. So we're at 138 now, I think. So we don't end up at 175 or 204. And how we ought to be using it as a tool.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes any sense, but just, I mean, we've been reacting to it now for how many years? About 4 years?
4 years at most.
Yeah,
Yes, I think.
and we refer to it all the time, but we haven't put it in officially in our operations.
So I guess two thoughts, and not to, get into the subject, but the question is, do we need to pursue it? So we have a series of policies that were put in place, and I'm gonna call them Ralph, right? That he had authorship of, that included certain disciplines that I believe would encompass that. Okay. And we have in policy 420, the board will, work towards a balanced operating budget, right? So that right there is, it kind of addresses the overall picture of spend. The evidence-based funding is more what the distribution of spend is within that bucket. I'm questioning whether procedurally we need something, which is something Dr. Johnson and I have talked about, which is there's a number of practices that we have that need to be codified in strong in procedure, how we do that. So I don't know if that would fully meet what you're asking, but that part needs to be done. So we can, I think we can put it as a review to see what exists. And then if it need be, we can bring it back. Okay. Others.
I did have one question.
Please.
I wanted to ask, and this is a question for Dr. Applewhite, but two months ago, we did have a collective action walkout of students walking out over harassment issues that they had identified in the school environment here. And we've been asking for student input on the definition of harassment and making sure that that our student population is comfortable with the definition and if we're missing anything. I bring that up just because I did have some informal conversations with students at Bus Cafe when we were at the forum, and things like microaggressions are really hard to get at sometimes, and I'm just wondering if we heard back from some of the more active student voices around this issue.
So it depends. So there's language in the policy for sexual harassment, and then there's language in the policy for harassment. So it depends on which one you're talking about.
Both.
Yeah. No, not exactly. So in the conversations with students, in thinking about how the policies work, just trying to get students understand what constitutes harassment, like what harassment is, not necessarily getting their voice, but just getting a working definition. In our policy, we have certain terms defined. And so that was the problem. So we discussed harassment in the policy, but there was no actual working definition of it. So when students were claiming harassment, it wasn't actually harassment. So I wanted to make sure that language was in the policy so that they understood what it was as it's defined sort of by law, so that when they are saying, because parents wanted certain actions to occur, such as disciplinary action for other students. And so they were not understanding that what they were claiming was not actually harassment. And so I wanted to be able to refer or reference the policy and couldn't effectively do that with our current policies because there were other things that were defined that students were saying, well, this is racism, this is discrimination, and we have language in the policy that refers to that. But when students would specifically say, I'm being harassed, in whatever manner, we define sexual harassment, that's in there, but like the term harassment was being thrown around a lot. And we just did not have language in our policy for that. So it wasn't an opportunity for me to get student voice in that way. We needed to act. So kind of expeditiously in that way. And so I just needed to take it to DLT and just move in that direction. I hope I answered that.
Well, we do have a future agenda item already on the books to be talking more about this concerns.
Yeah, and let me take advantage of that just to talk about future agenda items and how we're handling it, okay? For you newbies, okay? This is an opportunity to bring forth something that you feel you might want to be on an agenda. It is not a chance to bring forth and have a discussion on it. We shouldn't get into a discussion on it. There may be a need to clarify what it is that you're asking for, okay? At that point, then it has to be the will of the board, meaning a majority, to say, we want to have that as an agenda item, okay? And it goes on to a list that Dr. Johnson will keep of things that are suggested. And it is somehow or other then worked into our schedule that we would so deal with that. So it can be done, at this session, it can be done, through a note to the superintendent, but that's the way we've been trying to handle these things. Sometimes there's a tendency to want to get in and, talk about something, and the only talk should be to make sure people understand what it is that you're looking for, but not a dialogue. Okay. And with that, oh, please.
Give me a chance. Oh, gosh. I just want, just to follow up on Mr. Queen's position last week. So like, again, so administration had dialogue with Apple because we were trying to activate this mission purposeful. So just follow up on that engagement with back up or that organization. That was the kind of organization. So.
Thank you. Okay. So I move to adjourn the committee of the whole meeting. So, okay. What?
We can't adjourn. We have to pause and what's close.
Oh, I moved to pause. For a second. Sorry, I unadjourned and moved to pause recess. Recess is more appropriate. So that we may go into closed session. And then just for clarity, what's going to happen is what we're going to exit closed session and then we have a special, right?
Recess is going to close.
Then we will close out now and then we will go into a special meeting where we will need to take action. Okay. So
Do people need to leave?
yes. Okay, we'll need to go.
We're in closed session.
Well, no, we're not in.
Maybe we're at
Nobody knows.
Okay, so go.
I call to order the special board meeting of the Oak Park and River Forest District.
Adjourn the count, then we go into special, you didn't adjourn the count yet.
For the open session of the cow.
Okay, we can't be in two meetings at once, as we can.
So are you adjourning?
Okay, I move to adjourn the committee of the whole meeting.
Second.
All is in favor? Aye. All opposed? No. Okay, we are adjourned.
Now we're going to special.
Okay, I call to order the special board meeting at 10:17 p.m. in the boardroom of Oak Park and River Forest High School on Thursday, the 11th of May, 2023. May I ask for a roll call?
Mr. Henry,
Here.
Mr. Arkin,
Here.
Mr. Livingston,
Here.
Mr. Brandhouse,
Here.
Mr. Brisbane,
Here.
Dr. Maharaj,
Here.
Mr. Costa.
Here. Our first order of business is public comment.
None.
We have no public comments. Our next order of business is action items. I move to approve the personnel recommendations, including transfer, summer hire, resignations, and retirements.
Second.
Any discussion? May I ask for a roll call, please?
Mr. Henry,
Yes.
Mr. Brandhouse,
Yes.
Mr. Livingston,
Yes.
Mr. Brisbane,
Yes.
Ms. Dr. Maharaj,
Yes.
Mr. Arkin,
Yes.
Mr. Costa.
Yes. We have future agenda items here as well. Are there any future agenda items? Okay. I move to talk for 11 more minutes.
Denied.
No. I move to adjourn the second board meeting.
Second.
Do we need to vote on
Second?
something? No.
Yes, no, we voted.
We just did.
Oh.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Who seconded, Lisa?
I did.
Henry.